Our topic today is managing buyer offers. So we thought we'd do this webinar. We get questions pretty regularly about how to manage the buyer side when you've got only the buyer side of the transaction. And there are a couple of ways to handle this. So we thought we'd go over that today. So the first way or the first option of how to manage the buyer's side of a transaction when you've got only the buyer side is to set up a transaction for that active buyer and store the offers and any other paperwork related to that buyer in that transaction. Okay, so let's go ahead and that's again just a great place to store not just the offers, but any paperwork that's related to that buyer, whether it's the buyer's agreement, the pre-qualification letter, as well as the offers, etc. Okay, so it keeps it all in that one place. So let's just quickly create one so you can see how that works. So if I've got multiple locations in my account, I can put it in the appropriate location. I'd likely name the transaction based on the buyer. So let's say it was Brian Orlando, right? I can go ahead and put his name there, give it a status that you can set up as active buyer, right? And then that's pretty much it, right? This is just my placeholder for this buyer. So let's go ahead and get rid of this more info default information. Come down here if I want to make sure that Brian has got access to this particular transaction, I would specify him as an agent. Let's pretend that this is Brian right there. Oops, excuse me. Right there as a selling agent, and then add that transaction. Okay, so now I've got a transaction that I can use because I can store docs in the transaction, etc. I can use that as a placeholder for storing my docs related to this particular buyer, right? Then when he makes an offer, I can store that offer in here, etc., or the multiple offers in here, etc. Okay. So that is the first way. Again, keeps everything encapsulated in this one transaction, so nice and clean. Of course, that means that for every buyer you've got, that you would need to create that transaction to store those docs. And then once the transaction goes into contract, you can change the transaction, or the admin would need to change the transaction name by editing it and then changing this to the property address. Okay, so that's really beneficial if the transaction goes to contract and to close, because then you've wisely used that transaction for that. For buyers that don't ever go under contract or close, then you've used that transaction to store that buyer. And some offices prefer not to do that, right? So if you wanted an option, let me cancel this change. If you wanted an option to be able to store the offers that didn't involve creating a new transaction for each buyer, that you could pursue the second option, okay? The second option is to, let me just head away from this one. The second option is to create a single transaction called rejected offers and store any rejected offers there for the buyers, okay? So that's one single transaction that stores the rejected offers for multiple buyers. Okay, so let's see how that works. Let me go ahead and add a new transaction here. In this case, I'll go ahead and put it in my location if I've got multiple locations. In this case, I would just, again, I'm creating a single transaction, so I'd call this one rejected offers, right? I'd give it a status, or need to create a status called rejected offer. So I can go ahead and put it in there, right? If you like, after you create this rejected offer transaction, you can go deactivate that status. That way it's no longer listed in your list of statuses here, okay? And then again, I'm not really storing much information in here. This is a placeholder for my rejected offer, so I'm keeping it pretty empty. Let me go ahead and save this. So I've got my my transaction there that I've added. So now I've got a transaction called rejected offers. Okay. Let me head over to one that's already been populated that I've got created here with some rejected offers, so you can see how I can sort of facilitate getting those offers into here and managing them. So now I've got my rejected offers transaction, and I've got several rejected offers in here. Here's one for Harper Lee, my buyer, for Wilshire in Dallas. And then here's another one for Harper Lee, where she made an offer on Juneau Road, et cetera, right? I've got all my rejected offers for these different buyers. I can even sort it by document name if I wanted to see all Harper's in one in order there, etc. Okay. Additionally, once I've got these rejected offers in here, I can search for them. So let me head back out to my transactions list just to get off of this transaction. And let's say we're looking for my Harper Lee offer. Then I could go to, let me go back to my view my search options, which is the default. Okay, so I'm looking at, when I click into my search box, I'll see my search options here. And if I were searching for a particular doc, I could select doc there. And just a little side note, if you're not familiar with how this works, check out our video, ad hoc searching, for the different, how you can use the search operators. It goes into how you can do the different searches here. Super, super helpful. But again, right now I'm just looking for those docs that have Harper in the name. I can even put her full name if I needed to. And right, and it shows me that it's the rejected offers there, right? Which actually probably isn't too useful because I know I'm going to get, they're all going to be in this one rejected offer transaction. I could also just search for rejected, right? And easily find my rejected offers there. And notice I've got 3 different rejected offers here. And that's because I can either store a separate rejected offer transaction for each location, right? So maybe I've got a rejected offer for Brian's team. This one's actually an extra one that I was creating for testing, but a rejected offer for Brian's team and one for Alan's team, right? I could just create one large one if I don't have multiple locations, or if all the admins need to be able to have access to manage getting those rejected offers into there, okay? I could also create one rejected offer per agent, right? So maybe I've got rejected offer for Smith and rejected offer for Francis, right? And in that way, I can assign the agent to the rejected offer transaction, and they can upload their rejected offers to their rejected offer transaction directly instead of an admin having to add them there. So different ways of managing those there. And those are really your 2 options there.